Hey, what's up? It's your Friday episode of Locked On Raptors. Sean here. I've got the mood lighting set recording on a Thursday evening. And on today's show, we are talking about silly season. It's trade season, baby. With just like 6 days to go before most of the league can be traded once again. And with the Indiana Pacers falling into some sort of pit of despair, I'm joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers to talk all about how the Raptors can pick the Pacers for parts, plus a quick update on the Raptors COVID situation, which I'm recording this Thursday night. It could have totally changed by the time the morning comes around, but either way, that's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Raptors.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1076 of Locked On Raptors for Friday, December the 10th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can find the podcast free and available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, all that stuff. Please follow or subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all those things that those apps ask you to do to support the shows you like. It's much appreciated when you take the time to do so. Plus, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube as always. And a big thank you for making us your first listen of the day. All right, on today's show, we got a lot to get to. The Raptors have a potential COVID situation. They missed practice on Thursday, of course, and it's a little unclear as to what the status will be, and it could change at any point here. I'm recording this on Thursday night, just a little bit after the news that Masai Ujiri tested positive for COVID, released a statement talking about how it's believed it was contracted at the Giants of Africa. There's no real way of knowing this, of course. Everyone was vaccinated. It was fully vaxxed, proof of vax to get in. It's hard to say. It's a weird virus. It transmits. That's how viruses work. You don't need to go about figuring out exactly the location. The point is, Masai Ujiri tested positive for COVID. Hope Masai is okay and doing well. Best wishes to him, of course. And of course, best wishes to everyone on the Raptors and their orbit that they avoided as well. They're yet to be, at the time that we're talking, at 8:54 on Thursday night. There's yet to be a positive case reported within the Raptors team. So fingers crossed there. Of course, we know the whole team is vaccinated. As was reported earlier this week, I think 60% of the league has boosters done as well. So there's protection. But as it turns out, this pandemic ain't going nowhere, and the Raptors are very much living in it right now. So that's the latest we got on that. We will get to our interview with Tony East as well, talking Raptors, Pacers, and potential trade partnerships that could go down there as well. That's going to come up in the second and third segments. But first, I want to dig into sort of the concept of the Raptors and Pacers as trade partners and the sort of weird sort of in-between level of player that those two guys are. Before we get to that, though, I just want to tell you about our friends over at Truebill, who are bringing you today's show. They are the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you no longer want or need. You can even negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. Truebill, more on them in just a second. But let's get into the Raptors Pacers thing. I don't have much else to add on the COVID thing. We'll see what happens. Again, I'm kind of recording blind here on a Thursday night, and we'll see what happens over the course of the next 24 hours. Hopefully, the Raptors are playing a game on Friday against the New York Knicks, and everything is all hunky-dory. In the meantime, though, we'll talk some trades, and the Pacers, of course, this week are in a bit of a state of meltdown. There were reports earlier this week from The Athletic that they are looking at potentially trading one or all of Caris LeVert, Myles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, and I have some trade ideas and sort of thoughts on what the Pacers might want to sort of elicit from Tony East of Locked On Pacers in a sec. But I just want to kind of take a second here to sort of dig into why I'm so lukewarm, really, on this Turner and Sabonis thing with the Raptors. Obviously, anytime a center comes up with the Raptors these days, they're going to be a target and an apple of the Raptors fandom eye because they are tall, and the Raptors notably lack talls. So Domantas Sabonis, of course, a former All-Star, a guy who you can run your offense through as a sort of hub, not so much of an amazing defender, a passable defender probably. And then you've got Myles Turner, who less of an offensive force, mostly threes and kind of around the rim, pick and roll stuff. And then he's got the defensive side of the ball where he leads the league in shots essentially every single year, block shots essentially every single year. That's a good thing to have on your team, especially for a Raptors team that has been lacking that sort of stalwart back-end defensive player since Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka left, frankly. And you can see why the fit is pretty interesting. I think both guys fit with the Raptors. I don't think there's any question about that. Turner, I think, is sort of like at the first conclusion, oh, this guy is the fit. Oh, like he's the 3-point shooting guy who's going to clear out the lane for Siakam and Barnes and all of that. He's going to block shots and kind of be that backstop and be the sort of last line of the Raptors' very aggressive defense. He can be the guy who is there cleaning up all the messes that all the other overhelping and extra rotation sometimes can create when things go wrong in the Raptors' defense. He's there to clean it up, and that is a very good like caretaker to have cleaning up those messes, considering his shot blocking propensity. But then you get into the sort of a contract, factor with him. He's only got a year and a half left on his deal. Are you going to like extend Myles Turner and be paying Pascal Siakam, Scottie Barnes eventually? And like, it's not like Scottie Barnes is cheap right now. He makes like $7 million as the 4th overall pick. Obviously, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. There are going to be guys you got to pay. Are you going to make another one of those guys, Myles Turner, and risk being like a tax team going forward with a team that is built around Turner, Siakam, Barnes, Trent, and VanVleet and OG? Maybe you do that. And I think really the sort of key thing here with either of these guys, if you're going to trade for either Sabonis or Turner, the key thing here is Scottie Barnes in kind of a weird roundabout way. Because I don't think either Sabonis or Turner are the level of player you're bringing in to do the Kawhi thing where he's instantly your best player and then all of a sudden everything revolves around that guy. I don't think Sabonis is that good. He might be the best player on the Raptors if you were traded for right now. I would probably still take Siakam, but you could quibble either way. I think that'd be a pretty fun fit, by the way, too, as a 4-5. Lots of big to big passing, which is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. But he's not like Karl Anthony Towns. He's not Joel Embiid. He's not one of these sort of central centers who is going to be your entire life and you can center the entire team around him. And I think the Pacers have kind of proven that you can't build a contender with Domantas Sabonis as your best player, sort of being the fulcrum of your offense at all times. And so with that in mind, if the Raptors are going to pull off a deal for either Sabonis or Turner, and by the way, I think Sabonis is actually the better fit in theory just because of what he brings on the offensive end. And I think as a center, defensively, he'd be totally fine with the guys they have around him. But that's besides the point. When it comes to just the sort of theory of why you would make this trade, it comes back to Scottie Barnes again. And I think the reason is that if the Raptors think Scottie Barnes can be that number one within 2 or 3 years, can be that central figure within the team that everything else falls in place around, then I think you can maybe sell yourself on, okay, Sabonis is the missing piece. We don't have that number one just yet, but we're pretty sure we're going to have this guy in 2 years. That might be what the Raptors think here. And if they do pursue a deal with Sabonis, I would suspect that's sort of their thinking here is, oh, we don't actually have to make the trade for the superstar guy who's going to be our heliocentric player because we think we already have that guy in place right now. That's a lot to put on a 20-year-old guy. And as much as Scottie Barnes is amazing, and we love Scottie Barnes, it's a lot to expect him to be your best player within 2 or 3 years to maximize a Sabonis, OG, Siakam, VanVleet window. That is a lot of burden to put on Barnes. And again, I don't think the Raptors, as good as Barnes has been, as surprising and ahead of schedule he seems to be, they don't seem like the franchise that's going to heap something on a guy like that so soon. And I think ultimately, the reason I'm kind of lukewarm on the whole idea, and this also applies for Turner even more so, like Turner is not changing your life in terms of, championship equity or anything like that in a way that Sabonis might be able to. The reason why I think the Raptors probably end up just kind of avoiding this one altogether is this is not the swing to make. This is not all right, now we're going to throw in all the picks and all the young guys and go get our guy, because I don't think either Sabonis or Turner is that guy. If you're getting them on like a cheap sort of buy low sort of situation, great. I don't think that the Pacers at this point are going to be looking to sell low on these guys. It doesn't make any sense for them. They're trying to kickstart their franchise, get things back rolling, and sort of recenter around whatever it is, Chris Duarte or Malcolm Brogdon or whoever they end up bringing back in return for Sabonis in a hypothetical trade. And I just don't think that you want to be making that swing where it's going to take multiple first round picks in all likelihood. It's going to take, probably a Precious Achiuwa or a Malachi Flynn at the very least, thrown into like a Goran Dragic contract, which is a trade I'll be suggesting to Tony in just a second here on the other side. But yeah, that's just sort of my read on the situation is it's not a big enough swing. This is, again, not Karl Anthony Towns. If we're talking about Karl Anthony Towns in the exact same context, 100% you're throwing your best offer to get that guy because that guy changes your championship equity. I don't think Sabonis quite does that. And so I think I probably steer away from that move from the Raptors and just wait for the next center to come along. I've made this point before. But the Raptors are not in the position right now where they need to have their sort of final piece of the puzzle, center of the future in place. They might draft him someday, maybe this coming draft or something like that. They could trade for him another time. I don't think they're at the position now where there's not a reason to like force filling in that spot in sort of the end picture of the Raptors, because they're still far away from what that end picture is going to be. If you think about what they did when they won the championship, their final piece of the puzzle, center, wasn't acquired until like 20 games left in the regular season of the season they went on to win the title. That's just how it works. And I don't think they're currently in a position where, yes, the center's position is like a weak spot and everyone's upset about it all the time. And, oh my God, they're too small, blah, 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 blah. But they're not in a spot where it's like essential that they get that center in order to achieve their goals. They're just fine doing what they're doing this season, and they seem to be pretty okay with the roster construction they have. And so, again, I'm lukewarm on the idea, but that is not a very good way to tease up into the fake trade conversation. So we are going to have some hard-hitting fake trades to throw at Tony East. Maybe a wonderful deal can be struck, and the Raptors in fake trade land can land Domantas Sabonis from GM Tony East, who, by the way, hates doing fake trades, and I love asking him how to talk about fake trades. It's just so fun. I love it. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there and get to the conversation with Tony East in just 1 second. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Truebill, who are wonderful, and they are making it so you're no longer paying for those free trials and subscriptions you sign up for once and forget about. They're impossible to cancel. Like, it's so hard to remember. They don't send you reminders. You're not like signing up for some e-card site, and they're not reminding you 30 days later that your free trial's up. They're just going to charge you and say, ha ha ha, you missed the chance to cancel. We'll catch you next month, but we're not going to send you the reminder then either. So just don't trust it and go to Truebill instead, because they are the app that helps you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap, and your Truebill concierge is there to help you when you need them. They're there to help you when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Again, I am a person who signs up for things all the time and forgets about them, and then I'm losing money as a result. Don't be me. Be one of the 2 million users for Truebill has worldwide right now, and they have saved over $100 million combined for those 2 million plus users. Be one of them today. Don't fall for subscription scams anymore. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. That is truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/lockedonnba. And now let's get to it. My chat with Tony East from Locked On Pacers as I try to pick the Indiana Pacers for spare parts or very good centers. Potato, I suppose, but that's coming up in just a second. All right, joining me now on Locked On Raptors, smiling for the camera like the professional that he is. He is the host of Locked On Pacers. He is a man who really hates fake trades, and so naturally, I reached out to Tony when news of the Indiana Pacers' demise started to creep out this week and said, hey, Tony, want to come on to talk about some fake trades? And he graciously said yes through gritted teeth. Tony, how's it going, pal?
Excellent. I've had a fun week talking about everything except for basketball on my basketball podcast, which has been extremely exciting and fun. But I myself am doing well. I always love talking to Sean Woodley, so I'm gonna have a great time.
Look at us. We've got our festive lighting. I don't know how the mirroring works here. They got the festive lighting all behind us. It's gorgeous. The mood is set. The mood is right for me to try to pick the Indiana Pacers for parts. So let's dive in here, shall we, Tony? The Indiana Pacers this week, there was a report in The Athletic about how they're ready to trade everybody, maybe. Who's to say how real it all is? It's always, this guy will get traded, and then all of a sudden the guys don't get traded. Feelings change. Teams go on winning streaks, and things, kind of settle down. But let me ask you before we dive into some specific fits with the Raptors, as I kind of went over in the first segment regarding Domantas Sabonis and Myles Turner in particular. What is your level of belief that the Pacers will actually do this and trade both, all of their guys, and kind of actually tear down to the studs and do the rebuild the Pacers have never really done?
Yeah, it's what I always think is it's somewhere in between what the players are saying and what the report says, right? And
Sure.
The report says they're going to rebuild, and the players say we love Indiana, we're going to try to make it work. Right? Somewhere in between that is the actual truth, and so. Given the history of the Pacers, like you kind of just mentioned, given where the team is at, they have a good rookie right now on the team. They just hired an expensive winning head coach. I think all the signs and and contracts and everything we know about the Pacers points to the more apt word for what's coming up for them being retooling and not rebuilding. And I think you kind of assume that. I
The
think most
coward's way out.
some could say that, yes. But it makes more sense for them given where their team is, right? Like they've had the same problems for years and years in a row, and a new coach breaking could not fix that. So they have Chris Duarte. They know he's awesome. They can't trade Brogdon this year, and the Myles Turner report from Jared Weiss in The Athletic today suggests he wants a bigger or different role. And that doesn't mean not with the Pacers. He could want a bigger role with the Pacers. He has said that much himself. He even tweeted just now before I hopped on with you, Sean, people, please read the article and interpret it correctly, basically, right? So that doesn't mean he will be the guy on the move, but one of the bigs probably is. Maybe that's part of retooling. So I don't think the Pacers are going to strip it all down to the studs and start from the Chris Duarte and move up. I think they're going to try to build around a couple big good vets and Duarte and retool on the fly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Chris Duarte, oldest guy on the team, I'd be just kind of getting resetted around him. Unbelievable. But yeah, I think the Sabonis Turner thing has like always made sense as a thing to break up at some point. As well as it's worked at times. It feels like, why don't you rebalance the roster a little bit and change things up? But I guess that's been difficult because they've also been guard heavy and wing heavy. They just feel like they have 26 players on the Pacers roster every time I think about the Pacers. Like, oh, they got that guy too, and that guy. Oh, and that guy's there too. But the front court, that's always been kind of a weird, sticky fit. Like, Turner is a 5, I think, in the modern NBA. He's kind of a perfect 5 in a lot of ways, and there's a reason a lot of Raptors fans are lusting over him right now. Sabonis, also, I think, very clearly a 5, defensively in particular. Like, he's not going to roam around on the perimeter and chase around smaller guys. It just doesn't work. And he kind of profiles as someone who maybe, kind of like a Nikola Vucevic, for example, like stick him behind some good defenders, not to compare all the Eastern European centers to one another, but like stick him behind a good center, a good collection of wing defenders, and maybe you can get by with a sort of, get passable effort from his defensive side of the ball as your sort of anchor on defense, while also being a hub for your offense, which we know he's very good at. So yeah, that has made sense to like split it up in the past. Like, is there a world in which they don't do it? I guess, like, is there a world in which they just say, okay, yeah, Turner and Sabonis, you know what? We've flirted with trading these guys for 5 years now. We're actually going to just ride it out and see what happens here. Like, that feels like a pretty unlikely scenario here, no?
If you had asked me when I woke up this morning before Jared Weiss's piece came out, I would have said actually maybe, because this is actually by far the best year with those two on the court at the same time in terms of numbers. Like a +8 net rating this year, something like very impressive. In seasons past, that has not been the case. It's usually been plus with just Turner, no Sabonis, plus with just Sabonis, no Turner, minus when they share the court. And I have reason to believe, because of all of time, that would eventually have leveled out to be that way this year. But because it hadn't so far, there's a way where the Pacers, like you mentioned earlier, go on a little run to end December. They go, oh, it's working great, and they stick with it. But the other factor is, beyond what's happened this week, Myles Turner has the rest of this season and next season on his contract. That's it. If they don't deal him by this deadline, regardless, they would have hit the point where all the trade discussions go to, oh, he's an expiring deal, right? We have to be careful because he's a rental. So his value drops tremendously after February. So I kind of thought coming into this season that this would be the last season of the pairing anyway because of that, whether it's another team takes Turner or another team takes Sabonis and the Pacers decide to build around Turner. So now that this report from Jared Weiss is out about Turner realizing what he can be, what he wants to be, and how he wants to do it, yeah, I think it's almost a certainty one of those two players, and those will be dealt this year. Not both, but one of them for sure, I think.
Who do you think they should keep?
Man, that's tough to say because it kind of depends on what they want to do with their retooling, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Like some of the questions they have to ask in a lot of the deals they want to make is, okay, Duarte's the guy. Like he was in the report of, we want to build around this guy. We think he's awesome. And he is awesome. He just led them in scoring in a big win over the Knicks. Shot 8 for 11, had 6 assists. It's like, this dude's played how many games in the NBA? 24? Like it's crazy how good he already is.
As many games as he is years old.
Are you trying to make me mad, Sean? It's hard to say. I think Sabonis is better for sure. I think Turner fits on every team, which makes him pretty valuable. So it's hard to say. It might be based on what they can get in return. It might be based on what they think would fit better around Duarte. I don't really know. Like I would say Turner just based on the fact that basically for every season I've covered this team, Turner's been in trade rumors at some point, including them
Sure.
getting very close to trading him for Gordon Hayward, whereas Sabonis
Mhm.
has never really been in trade rumors. But that doesn't mean things can't change or, a new coach can't insert his opinion into the equation. But I would say if you made me choose, I would say it's more likely Myles Turner's the one that is dealt.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think Sabonis is the better player. You can kind of run more offense through him and have him be your central hub, and he's shown that he can be an all-star doing that, even if he's not like a championship anchoring type player. So let's get
Well, if
into
they can't win a
some,
championship, why are
yeah,
they even playing the games? What a stupid
right?
idea.
What is the point of basketball without only playing into June? This 9-month odyssey we go on every year is a waste of time. We've all been burning our money and eyeballs and cable bills for no reason. The championship or bust is stupid. Let's not ever revisit that. But I do want to get into some trade ideas and sort of throw some your way, Tony. We will get to that in just 1 second here, and I will do the thing that you hate the most, and I can't wait to torment you with those fake trades I've come up with. We'll get to that. But first, want to tell you about our friends over at built.com. The Built Bar people are making the best tasting protein bars in the whole wide world. And it's the holiday season, so you get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. Right here, I have a pair of clementines. These are delicious and healthy. Also delicious and healthy are Built Bars, and you should definitely look to indulge in Built Bars throughout the holiday season, because guess what? You can't do everything with clementines that you can do with Built Bars. For example, you can't dip your Built Bar into or you can't dip your clementine into a piping hot cup of cocoa, but you can dip a Built Bar and it makes it a soft, melty, delicious treat that you can feel good about. Also, clementines, they come in one flavor. You just one flavor for these bad boys. Instead, with Built Bar, you get tons of flavors and lots of flavors that pop up from time to time, especially during the holidays. Yes, this is an accidental ad read. I didn't realize I had clementines here, but I'm working it in, baby. I'm leading into the skid. Either way, Built Bar are the best tasting protein bars money can buy. And again, they have limited time flavors that pop up all the time. Rumor has it there's a caramel macchiato one floating around out there. You got to hop on that. Plus, if you like marshmallowy treats around the holidays, you got to get your hands on some Built Bar Puffs. They're light, they're fluffy, and they're marshmallowy through and through, different flavors, all covered in chocolate. They taste so good, you won't believe they're filled with protein. That's one thing clementines don't have. I don't know if you eat the peel. I don't think there's protein in the peel. But either way, I'm pretty sure there's not protein in any part of the clementine, and Built Bar has that for you. So you should definitely go check them out over at built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. That's the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. In case all you ever eat is clementines, there's something else for you. All right. Also, today's show is brought to you by our pals over at betonline.ag, who have you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new website. It's either desktop or mobile website, and you can sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to get that bonus. You put in $100, you get $150, boom, in your account. What a wonderful deal. Go to from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Tony, I'm done talking about small oranges. Let's dig in here to some trade ideas for you. Look, I'm having trouble because the retooling of it all makes it difficult to come up with trades with the Pacers, because you think like, oh, if they're rebuilding, toss in some young guys, toss in some picks, and then boom, that's like a package that a rebuilding team would want. But if they're looking at Chris Duarte and Malcolm Brogdon and whatever else they've got there, TJ Warren, if he ever comes back as the future, with one of Turner or Sabonis in there as well, you would think they're going to want guys who can help right away. And so that makes things difficult. But I do have one to throw your way. Just that's sort of like the salary ballast plus young dudes and picks persuasion. And we'll see what you think there.
Yay.
I think, and I talked about this off the top of the show, I think Domantas Sabonis is the better fit with the Raptors. It's kind of a weird take, and maybe that's wrong, but I kind of think having him as like an offensive hub with like the really smart passing that you get from Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet, it would be just like a lineup of really good offensive players all coming together as one. And I feel like you could get a pretty good half-court offense out of that. Whereas Myles Turner, while yes, he does the spacing thing that you want, maybe it offers a little bit less in terms of greasing the wheels of your offense. But That's besides the point. Go back to the first segment to re-listen to my takes on that if you'd like. Tony, Domantas Sabonis. Let's start with him, shall we? He makes $18.5 million. He's got 2 years beyond this year as well, and he's quite good. The deal I have concocted that features salary ballast plus picks and young players is something along the lines of Goran Dragic, probably flipped to a third team via the Pacers, along with Precious Achiuwa, Malachi Flynn, and like name your number of picks that are, sort of varying degrees of protected. 2 first-round picks, maybe a third first-round pick that's a little bit more heavily protected down the line. You throw in, I think, like a Torrey Craig works as a balancing thing for the money, and that is what you come together with. Is that anything the Pacers would have any interest in, like the Goran Dragic plus young stuff in picks as the return for someone like Sabonis?
Congratulations, you did an okay job. I was worried where this was
All
headed.
right. All right.
Every time I talk about Sabonis trades, I go back in time a little bit. Last year, the Chicago Bulls and Orlando Magic made a nice trade featuring another Eastern European center, Nikola Vucevic, who went from Orlando to Chicago for Otto Porter, just there for salary. Let's ignore that. And 2 first-round picks and Wendell Carter Jr. And I would say that last year, Vooch was a little better than Sabonis, and this year he has been a little worse, but in general, he's about as good, right? And he's older. So I have thought that those two have basically the same trade value. So when I think of Sabonis trades, that's my starting point. And you were right there. You had your young guys, you had your multiple picks, and you had your salaries. So I like Malachi Flynn quite a bit. Precious is a player who exists. I don't really know how to feel about him yet. He has some things he does that I think are awesome, and a lot of other stuff he does that seems like if I had to watch him night in and out, it'd be very frustrating. So perhaps those 2 and 2 top 6 protected firsts or something would be fine. I think that's pretty close in terms of the value. Yeah, Dragic makes no sense with the Pacers short or long term. So finally, Dallas can have him. Sure, here, take him.
But it's completing the Rick Carlisle trade. He's the player to be named later.
So I think that value is okay. Obviously, I don't know what the Pacers necessarily want. Like, would they be like, we want Fred VanVleet or something along those lines? But the Raptors, the whole point of getting someone like Sabonis is like, we want good player with our good players already have. So yeah, I think that value is good. But the whole question of the Pacers' willingness to do something like that is, do they want young guys in picks, or do they want someone good in return? And that's where the rubber would meet the road with something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'm higher on Achiuwa than I am on Flynn, so I guess our opinions there are kind of inversed. But I mean, Achiuwa is already a very good defensive player. He's been one of the best defenders on the Raptors this season. Offensively, yeah, is he liable to go 1 of 10 sometimes? Yes, but he usually will make it up with his good defensive play. And they were missing him in that Thunder game on Wednesday, and it was an absolute nightmare without him available in that game. And, he's been a really big part of their defense so far. So I'm glad I'm not totally off base. If I'm the Pacers, I probably want a little bit more for Domantas Sabonis, considering he's been like their franchise player for many years. And that probably feels like a bit of a lukewarm return coming back. But I'm glad I'm kind of in the ballpark. Let's do this one instead. Instead of the sort of Dragic plus ballast type return, Sabonis with the returning sort of central piece being Gary Trent Jr. You throw in, I think you can throw in Malachi Flynn, or you can throw in Precious Achiuwa. That makes the money work. You could also throw in a couple of the lower salaries, I suppose, in the Raptors, an Isak Bonga or an Svi Mykhailiuk or something like that to make the money work. But Gary Trent Jr., extra salary filler plus 2 firsts or something like that. Is that something the Pacers might have more interest in, or are they also like a little loaded with guards with LeVert and Brogdon already making a ton of money for them?
The biggest reason I'm lower on that one, despite the value not being super different, is a lot of the reporting and the logic about building a team is they're doing a lot of this with Chris Duarte in mind because he's already very good and awesome. And Gary Trent's also good. Like, I don't want to say Gary Trent is not good, but his skills are scoring a lot and not passing a lot for a guard, and that makes it a lot harder for Chris Duarte. That makes it a lot harder for Duarte to get his reps in and improve as he gets older and better. So not that they would be like a bad fit together by any means. Like, Duarte already plays with LeVert and Brogdon who have the ball, but I think if you're making a trade with the goal of improving your team long term, you wouldn't want to get someone else back who also does that. So not that value is necessarily wrong. I just don't think that's something the Pacers would consider under the guise of what they're trying to do with these moves.
So then my next one won't work either. I was just going to suggest Trent for Turner straight up.
I would say no, regardless of situation there. But I like the effort.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Turner. Let's flip our attention to Turner here. I think we've kind of established what the potential value could be, and you're right. It's tricky to make deals here with the Raptors because, like, I don't think Sabonis or Turner are of the level where they'd be comfortable giving up one of Siakam, Van Vliet, and Anunoby. And obviously not Scottie Barnes. Like those are the and like, hey, maybe they could talk themselves into like an OG for Sabonis swap if they feel like that's something that could help sort of balance out their roster a little bit. I think you're kind of taking away from one strength to then create a hole somewhere in that where that strength was if you're doing that. And I know there's certain Raptors fans out there. Hi, Emma Brown, who would not be happy to see me suggest OG for Sabonis, and so I won't do that. But yeah, I think with Turner, I mean, is it just like a lesser version of that Dragic package? Like, is it like 1 first-round pick plus the Flynn Achiuwa thing? Like, is that kind of? And I guess it's a little bit less money, and so maybe it's a different sort of returning salary coming back the Raptors' way. Maybe it's a Justin Holiday or something like that. But is that of any interest to the Pacers? Do you think? Like a lesser version of that big return, Dragic plus young stuff and picks in exchange for Turner.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. His value is so fascinating to think about because in my head, like a late lotto pick and a young dude and whatever the money is, like that seems about right, especially because he only has a year and a half left on his deal. But every time I'm on the internet, every single time I'm on the internet, I see someone who covers, I think, every single team in the league say something to the effect of, wow, Myles Turner would be a pretty good fit on our team. It's like,
Yep.
if every team is offering stuff for him, is his price a lot higher than I think? Is there some sort of bidding war thing going on here? Like, and maybe I'm just crazy because social media is not the actual NBA, obviously, but you just get the sense that given his skill set would fit, like even on teams that already have centers, his skill set fits in a way like he's been doing his whole career. So I have a lot of trouble pinpointing his value. I don't think, if whatever precious Malachi lotto protected first money, like that's close, I think, but I don't know again where the Pacers would like to go with that kind of stuff, but that value sounds right in my head.
Yeah, and the thing with Turner is like I know I said Sabonis is like the better fit. That's more of like a team building sort of thought. If you're making this swing as the Raptors, I think you'd want to get the better player because you're probably not going to have that many swings if you're throwing out a bunch of picks. Like you're going to be sapping your asset pool, and you want to make sure you're getting the best guy you can if you're going to make that swing. And ultimately, it's why I don't think they're going to be kind of involved in this at all, because I don't think either of those guys kind of move the needle enough to really justify making that one big swing they're lining up for. I mean, it's not Karl Anthony Towns or anything like that, as good as Sabonis is. And so I think it will have to be sort of like a buy low situation in a way where maybe it's perceived as like a buy low from the Raptors side of things because you're not giving up a lot of like tangible real life assets right now. And maybe it's exactly what the Pacers want. But I think it's tricky because you're right. Turner fits everywhere. Turner brings like what the Raptors have missed from Serge Ibaka for 2 seasons, which is, he takes threes, he blocks shots, he, can sort of finish plays for you. Like that's a wonderful player to have, especially with the guys the Raptors do have. And, Scottie Barnes, is he a 40% 3-point shooter? The last week or so says yes, but probably not. Pascal Siakam, we know that he needs space in the lane to operate, and having Turner space out might be a really effective way to maximize Pascal Siakam. But again, I think it's tricky to talk yourself, if there is a bidding war, into paying a ton and like over premium for Myles Turner and making that your swing. Because if there is a bidding war and it's an extra first and a pick swap or something that gets thrown in because X team and Y team are throwing in a big offer, then I think you're kind of setting yourself up as the Raptors to lock yourself into a core that is not really going to win by the time Myles Turner's contract comes to an end. So it's tricky stuff. And I do not envy you trying to figure all this out, because I'm sure you're just like fielding offers from fake internet people and people like myself, left, right, and center. But Tony, want to thank you so much for popping on to at least indulge these fake trades, even if despite the positional fit, they might not make a ton of sense where the Raptors are. Any parting shots here before we get out of here?
No, I just no interest in Karis LeVert in Toronto. No, I just the fit. Before you say anything, I don't think the fit is that great. It's not bad. Yeah. he's good. He can score. I think he fits kind of anywhere if you can put the ball in the basket, but not necessarily a guy that I can see being like, oh, perfect. We got Karis LeVert next to Van Vliet and Pascal and Scottie now. Like, I think he's good, but no interest, I would assume.
I think if Karis LeVert were a 38% 3-point shooter, then yeah. But if Karis LeVert were a 38% 3-point shooter, then you're probably not looking to trade him if you're the Pacers, right? So that, yeah, I think
3-point percentage does end in 8. That's true.
I just, yeah, it's tricky because, like, I would assume the return there is probably something like Gary Trent. And at that point,
wow, really?
I don't know. I guess I don't know how good Karis LeVert feels like a guy who, like, everyone agreed was amazing even before he was good, and then now that he's like kind of okay, everyone thinks he stinks. I don't really know how to evaluate.
That is very
Karis
well
LeVert.
said.
Yeah,
that is the best description of him I've ever heard, including of people who cover the Pacers.
But yeah, maybe it's not Gary Trent Jr. Maybe it's like a mix of like a Kem Birch and a Chris Boucher plus some stuff, or a Malachi Flynn and a Chris Boucher and some stuff. Plus, you have to fill in the salary filler and all that too. But look, if Karis LeVert were the sixth man for the Raptors, maybe. But again, the lack of shooting, there was already so many spots where they don't have enough shooting that I don't know if his like playmaking would move the needle enough and balance out where they would be missing shooting when he's on the floor. So that feels like a good place to leave this one. If there's any other Pacers you feel like firing over to the Raptors, a healthy TJ Warren, perhaps, that'd be all right. Other than that, as I mentioned, there's 9,000 players on this team. None of them are particularly interesting to me at the moment outside of Sabonis and Turner. But Tony, thanks for being on here, man. This was awesome. As always, anything that people should know about you in terms of plugs and stuff you got cooking?
Yeah, check out Locked On Pacers this week. Normally, I cover lots of games in great detail because basketball is games, but this week has been a lot about not games. So if you want to catch up on all the reports going on with the Pacers, what they've been saying about it, what's next for them, I've been breaking all that down on the Locked On Pacers podcast, and I'm on Twitter at TEastNBA, yelling my sweet thoughts of nothing into the void.
You also do a wonderful job when you co-host Locked On NBA as well. You were on there with Matt Moore yesterday, everyone's favorite Raptors fan friend. Matt Moore, love Matt Moore. He's got this weird thing where he's like angry that Raptors fans aren't mad this year. It's bizarre. Please talk to him about it next time you're on with him and tell him it's fine to be okay with a team that's just okay. Anyway, that we'll wrap that up. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Go make your second listen Locked On Bets, as your boy Q and Lee Sterling are covering all of the betting action that you need going into the football weekend and all that stuff. Much appreciated, as always, for listening. We'll talk to you again on Monday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.